Well, thanks a lot for the warm welcome and for the privilege of having the opportunity now to share some of my preliminary findings in the research that I'm just about to start, or I have started, but I haven't come long into the world of the Disney when dealing with children, media and worldview. It's such a fascinating area. It's such an important triangle. And back home in Norway, I actually lead a new research project dealing with exactly children, media and worldview, but then we aim towards the academy and we want to integrate a course in this very, very important topic as part of teaching training at our university college. But I have this burden really that whatever we do in the academy should sort of flow over and into the churches, into the Christian families and be of help, because we are all struggling with the same issues. And when we in academy deal with popular culture, with worldviews, with how we figure out what is right, what is wrong, how should I live my life, then what about the church settings in this respect? I feel that the triangle of children, media and worldview is very much neglected in our churches and therefore also in the Christian homes. So what we are going to do now in some minutes that's waiting for us is actually to dig into the universe of the Disney from this particular perspective. And I'm so pleased that I'm just to share some of what I have figured out so far, and then we have responses from the two nice gentlemen down here, and I hope all of you have comments and questions as we go along after my introduction. So here we go. In a certain time in history, before anyone knew what was actually going on, Walt Disney cast a spell on the fairy tale, and he has held it captive ever since. There's a quote by the novelist Jack Sipes. And you see a very young Walt Disney here, but he has his moustache on, and you know why he got it at an early age? To feel that he was a bit more mature. When going into rough negotiations with other people in the business, he felt, I'm so young, I need a moustache, it will make me look a bit more mature. And he had it until he died. The signature is well known, and he really has held it captive to the very day 2015, the 17th of March. It all started with a mouse though, and Walt Disney was so eager to remind people of that. It all started with a mouse. I was asked whether I had been to Disneyland or not. I have, with my sunglasses and research glasses on. And of course, Mickey is there, Mickey Mouse. And if you go to Burbank, as I had the privilege to do just a couple of weeks ago, to the Walt Disney Studios, even on these picket fences, you see a mark of Mickey Mouse. It all started with animation. It all started with Mickey Mouse. And I would love us to have time to just go into the YouTube and enjoy this first cartoon movie with Mickey playing crazy from 1928, or even better from 1929 when the sound came on. Please do that. Treat yourself to that. But in Norway, okay, we got, as you saw in the 1930s already, we got Mickey Mouse playing crazy. But in Norway, Mickey first and foremost came into our homes when we got Donald Duck, to pronounce it in the real Norwegian way, in December 1948. And actually, still today, Norway is one of the countries that really, when we compare with how many people we actually have in our country, buy a lot of magazines with Donald Duck. And just a month ago, one issue of the first number was sold for $12,000 in Norway. So he's popular. And Norwegians are crazy about Donald Duck and all his friends, even Mickey Mouse. That was 1948 it all started in Norway. Just a few years after, we had this cover story in Time magazine to show us that really Walt Disney was global. He was already global. Measured by his social impact, Walt Disney is one of the most influential men alive. The hand that rocks the cradle is Walt Disney's, and who can say what effect it is having on the world? So, it all started with a mouse, 1928, with a sound, 1929, in Norway, 1930s, in Norway, 48, with Disney, the magazine, and few years after that, 54, we have this reading in Times magazine, and we understand he went global. So when I have this burden that what we are doing in the academy should be of help into the churches, into the families, globally, I'm sure you agree with me that aiming towards Disney as a case study is the real thing. He went global in the first 10 years of existence, and he really holds a grip globally on entertainment, on popular culture. I really wonder what you would answer today to that question from the journalist in Time magazine, 1954. What has the universe of Disney contributed with? What effect has it had on the world? You may have wanted to start with Mark Pinsky's quote from 2004. Disney has created a world of fantasy that both entertains and educates children all over the world. Of course, in this country as well, but all over the world. Okay, but still, it's not fully answering the question, is it? What sort of entertainment? What education? And since 2004, it has grown immensely. And just this logo, Disney Junior, tells it all, doesn't it? It says 2011, 2012, but there were forerunners, but this was actually when it all started. And today, there are 34 Disney channels in 25 languages all around the world. So we are global. We have gone global. And this is just to make you even more overwhelmed if you feel like, oh, I didn't quite think of Disney as being this large. But it is. All these countries, all these languages online. Just as Barry said, via what's being aired here from Biola, a lot of people all over the world dig in and listens. Well, that's really the case of what's going on in the Disney universe. So, a huge variety of images, a huge variety of arenas, a huge variety of stories, but they are magical. The key point is the magical stories. It all started with a mouse, and it went magical. What is it then with these stories? What's in a story? Oh, I could have had lecture after lecture after lecture just aiming towards the story. I won't do that. But I'd love to focus a tiny little bit on the story that is so vital, the key thing at what we are heading at when we deal with Disney's. Philip Pullman, this well-known English author. You may have had dark material on the reading lists, those of you who are young enough for that. Golden Compass, maybe you watched that film. But anyway, he says, all stories teach, whether the storyteller intends them to or not. They teach the world we create, they teach the morality we live by, they teach it much more effectively than moral precepts and instructions. The story. Is that so? And what about Walt Disney's stories in this respect? they know that they carry on more than entertaining, the ones who work with Disney. A very honest, straightforward sentence here. When you take on a Disney animated feature, you know you're going to be affecting entire generations of human minds. They know. You saw what Pullman said? Whether they are aware of it or not, whether they intend so or not, in Disney, they know. You know you're going to be affected entire generations of human minds. And then I wonder, do you and I know? Do we take into consideration that this is actually going on? Do we listen to what they actually share with us in these stories, these powerful stories? Do we do as this well-known, in Europe at least, no, he's well-known all over the world, John Stott, the Lausanne with Billy Graham. When John Stott, in line with Spurgeon and Karl Barth and even Paul in Athens, says, listen to the word and listen to the world. Well, Paul didn't say it just like that, but it's in line with Paul. Do we listen firstly to the Bible and then to the stories that are surrounding us in our daily life? In order to be in the world, not of the world. In order not to hide, but to engage. In order to be salt and light. That is what we are called to do. And then we should listen carefully to the stories also of Disney that goes worldwide. It's not just for the kids, it's for all of us. And in order to do that, listen to the Bible first. He was very, very eager to underline that, Mr. John Stott. First listen to the Bible and then listen to the other stories. Then you can build a bridge. And you can actually celebrate all that is good, fantastic, wonderful. You embrace. All truth is God's truth. All the beauty, all the creativity in Disney and in other stories. But also, in addition to celebrating, you will challenge because you are called to be holy. You're called to be salt and light. So I wonder how often we actually help the younger generation, the youngest generation, to build a bridge between the Bible stories and the stories, for instance, in Disney. That's our focus today. In The Beauty and the Beast or Lion King. Do we relate? Do we, for instance, connect to the Beauty and the Beast when talking to the younger people about how easily we judge people out from what they look like? And do we step aside a bit when they sing the circle of life over and over again? And say, okay, what are you actually singing? Yes, circle of life from a certain perspective, that's right, but... And then you unfold the large, big story of the Bible that isn't circular, but goes on. You see what I mean? Just a tiny little glimpse of that. But what we find, what you find in the US, what we find in Norway, what one finds all over the world now is actually a competition, in a way, between the stories with the messages that we want to hand over in our homes, in our churches, in our Christian schools, and what's going on in popular culture. And Disney really has a huge impact, both with good values and with values that you really feel like needing to challenge. When Mia Löfheim, a well-known sociologist from Sweden, said this, I said, hooray, at last! Because at our university college, we have said this for ages. But you know, it takes some time until the big shots, you know, really sees it. And they see it in all parts of the world now. That if we are to take fully into consideration what's going on in popular culture, we see that the media plays an important role when it comes to religious socialization in our culture. And I just wonder, do we, as Ted Turnow in his Popologetics says, popular culture gives us scripts or templates that model the way of life, how it is or how it should be. A few years back, I and a former student of mine phoned me up. Now she works in a publishing house, said, Margunn, could we please write a book together? Isn't that fantastic? Former students call you back and say, can we write a book together? What you taught me has made such an impact. I want more people to have this. And now we can, because I'm employed by a publishing house. And the title, Manus, manuscript, you see the link here? The script for life, live, manus for live, a manuscript for life. We did in that book exactly what I would like all of us to do in our daily life as we walk along, talk with young people to old people, between ourselves. Ask, who is actually writing the script for my life? Who do I listen to? Who will define who I am, my value? Who gives me instructions of what choices are good and not good, and so on? So we actually went into the curriculum of the confirmation area in Norway, and we built this bridge from the curriculum, the Bible, and popular culture on each and every step as we went along. You see, it's not that hard. It just has to be done. And a lot of people need to wake up. Walt Disney then, what about his themes? What about the way he would like to pursue life? He says, we like to have a point of view in our stories, not an obvious moral, but a worthwhile theme. Okay. The important thing is to teach a child that good can always triumph over evil, and that is what our pictures attempts to do. So they have a certain aim. They write something in on purpose in the script of how we should live our lives, what we should say is important and what we should just ignore. And I just wonder, where does the magic come into the picture? But it's a worldview level there, no question about it. Of course, worldviews, we can have many, many different ways of explaining it. To me, I actually am very much aware of that you cannot live without a worldview. And I won't give you a lecture in worldviews, but it strikes me when the Barna Group, situated not far from here, says that by the age of 13, it's actually quite set, the worldview of the young people. A person's worldview is primarily shaped and is firmly in place by the time someone reaches the age of 13. It's refined through experience during the teen and early adult years. So, thinking of the enormous impact of popular culture in general, Disney in a special sense, what about the themes? What about the traces of worldview? And I think of worldview as something holistic. So when James Sire in 2004 came with his book Naming the Elephant, he had expanded his view of worldview, and I really embraced that. It really goes so hand in hand with what I had been doing back home in my tiny little research as well. So that is the platform I stand at. A worldview as a commitment, a fundamental orientation of the heart. We all have a heart. that can be expressed as a story. No wonder I like this, story. Assumptions which may be true, partially true, entirely false, which we hold consciously or subconsciously. They can be consistent or inconsistent about the basic constitution of reality, and that provides the foundation on which we live and move and have our being. And all my students says, that's Paul, that's Paul. And I said, no, but Paul is quoting a Greek poet, isn't he? Yeah, but it's still Paul that we get it from. So the worldview, nothing is neutral, no one is neutral. Everyone carries a certain perspective, a certain worldview, whether they are aware of it or not. Which means that all these images that I just got from Disney.no the other day, just to show you that nowadays in Norway it's not just Donald, but it's just the same as you have over here. All these images have traces of worldviews underneath the typical line of story that we immediately realize. And of course, there is a role of magic here. That's the key thing in Disney. And the magic in Disney, in all these different stories that we see, make you take you away and actually shows you a better life. And then it allows you to apply it to your life. Is that so? A good story with real magic should work like that, says Leonard Martin. And then Mark Pinsky says that Disney uses magic as the unexpected device to intervene and resolve plot conflicts. He wouldn't have anything of religion, Walt Disney, but he built on folk tales from Europe. But instead of using the same tools, and instead of going to Greek, that's still Europe, but further south than the main folk tales, with one in disguise entering the stage, being hidden as a god. No, I won't have anything of this, Disney said, but I want magic. Because we need that in our work. And of course, back home nowadays, back home being Norway, it's Frozen and the magic in Frozen that is the real thing. And of course, when I went to Disneyland, I had to make something of the link between Norway and Frozen, taking some pictures. After traveling to Norway, Disney artists began to form a more stylized Arendal. The Norwegian town of Balestrand provided much of the artistic and architectural inspiration. So you see, they wanted the name Arendal, more like Tolkien, I heard someone say. But they went up to the northwestern coast of Norway to find the steep mountains and the right scenery for the magic of Frozen. And of course, it's called Frost in Norway. It's highly popular, and everyone rejoiced when on the 12th of March we heard that there will be a Frozen #2. But I wonder still, when I see all these young girls being dressed like Elsa and Anna around in Norway, as I saw in Disneyland, and when I hear they sing, what do they sing? Even a boy, I would think he was 14, 15, when we went out of the small show in Disneyland the other day, I heard him sing, "Let it go, let it go." A boy, mind you, a teenager. Why? It's catchy. But what is the content? Let it go. It's time to see what I can do, to test the limits and break through. No right, no wrong, no rules for me. I'm free. Let it go, let it go. Very often, if we listen carefully to the songs in the Disney stories, we get the main theme. They say so in the press kits, and we know it. The songs are ever so important. And they know what they are doing. As here, Chris Weiss is known not just as a director, but I chose him here as a director of Golden Compass with Philip Pullman, but he says, you get a main line into the hearts and minds of children, so you have to be careful with that. It's such a powerful way of telling a story when you have a film. So that is why I really use films from now on. The last of my presentation will aiming towards some films in the Disney universe, so that we have a signpost, sort of, a listening point towards what are the main values, the key themes that will sort of pull over to other parts of the Disney universe. We could have said a lot of why movies are so important, with the music, with the filming, with the emotions that are stirred in us. We don't have time for that. But just remind yourself that movies are actually the strongest medium when it comes to the way a story is told. And Disney knew that. So he actually met a global, multicultural audience in the first place. So when Snow White came in 1937, it was dubbed into 7 different languages immediately. And Pinocchio, some years later, just 1940, was actually dubbed into 7 more languages. So it was global in the first place, which of course made him think, I won't disturb anyone in their religious feelings. I really would like to make this accessible for an audience outside and inside the Judeo-Christian tradition. So when we actually meet a film, whether it's a Disney film or other films, we know it's entertainment, but we know it's more. Just like this, I like to use the metaphor of an ocean because we live close to the ocean. There is a surface, but I know very well that I can dive into the sea because there is more under the surface. But I better be aware, what is it? There may be rocks there. How deep is it? And deep down, there can be a lot of very exciting stuff. And that's the same with the stories. Deep down, we find a lot of very exciting stuff. Even we realize there are traces of worldviews. Cinderella. Anyone going to Cinderella this last Friday? I did. And I have the privilege of having quite distant but still relatives in LA. So I invited them to go with me. And I said, we'll enjoy. And a beauty of enjoying is actually to talk afterwards. And they had never, ever talked about a film in the way we did afterwards. But they enjoyed. Everyone enjoys it, if only they get inspired to do so. But what is it with Cinderella? If we see Cinderella as pure entertainment, as most people actually want to do, then it's just an old fairy tale, isn't it? And especially from a European point of view, it's so easy to go cynical, to be skeptical, because, we will just, whatever value we find in Cinderella, we will just put it there in the actual old fairy tale, and we will get entertained, full stop. But are we open to go a bit underneath, to see what is actually the message in this story? Well, it's a classical folk tale, isn't it? Intended as entertainment, intended as transmission of tradition, and intended as moral formation. So, what Disney does, he uses an old folk tale. There are 300 different stories of Cinderella. And Disney Disneyfies the key of a folk tale. That is what he did in 1950, and that is what he does in 2015. We'll come back to that. But what I usually use as a tool for content analysis of stories is what I actually developed as part of a master's degree way back in history when Dawson's Creek was very new and very hot. And I tested my tool on Dawson's Creek, so I went American. But of course, it was on the Norwegian telescreens all over. But we have this James Sire worldview definition in the back of our head, the holistic view, and still we can say that when watching a story and listen to what's going on and realizing what choices are being made, the way of living, so on, we can detect some values and a certain view of humanity, a certain view of reality, and deep down, faith. I'm not saying it's a religious faith, faith in something spiritual. That doesn't have to be the case. It could be faith in my intellect, where you put your trust, where you find meaning. Just as it's impossible not having a worldview, but you can be totally unaware of it, just as impossible is it to live one single day without finding trust and meaning somewhere. So if we go back to Cinderella and wonders, what about the values here, key ethical values? Of course, we found have courage and be kind. That's a major message. I'm sorry to spoil if you would like to go to Cinderella tomorrow and thought that you would be totally blank beforehand. You're not, because you know the old story and it hasn't been totally changed. Not at all. Have courage. Be kind. But that is quite a counter-cultural message nowadays, isn't it? It's a virtue, goes back to the folk tales, and goes back to in 1950 when the first film came out in a Judeo-Christian context. Be kind to others, reach out and have this courage. Courage actually is moral strength to persevere despite danger, fear or difficulty. And kindness is defined as a desire to do good things to others, to help others, and to bring happiness to others. What about all the people who enter the cinemas nowadays to watch Cinderella? How do they think of have courage and be kind? And I dare say, to what extent is this also a counter-cultural message when thinking of a lot of other stories in the universe of Disney? We don't go into the telesoaps, we don't go into Marvels and so on. We're just aiming at the classical films now. What about view of humanity? Well, everyone is valuable and should be respected. No one should be degraded. That's what I clearly saw when I sat down in the cinema last Friday. Forgiveness is a possibility, and mutual love and respect between Cinderella and the prince. Wow. And view of reality, there is actually something good and something evil, and they are clear opposites in the universe of Cinderella. And magic is an integrated part of actually the reality. What then of this faith? And mind you, I'm not saying faith as religious, but faith whether you have a belief in something religious or something secular. Faith here is just have faith. And Ella's mother, I'm sorry to spoil this, but we get to know how she died. We didn't get to know that in 1950 version. We get to know this now. And when Ella's mother talks to Ella just before she dies, she says, have courage, be kind, have faith. Do you believe? I believe in everything. And that is the magic. Have faith. And of course we can share quite a few reflections just out from Cinderella in a few moments, but I just wonder, it was created in this Judeo-Christian context, like all the classics. And so many of the classics are sort of endurance stories. Hold on, hold on. That was part of the context as well. 1940s, 1950s, both in Europe and in US, hard times. We needed something to aim for, a hope. And the key values that we find in Cinderella anno 2015 as well sort of illustrates the fruits without the roots, because Disney wouldn't have anything to do with religion. But still we find so many values that we would confirm from a Christian perspective, and they are sort of the fruit without the roots. And the key values are counter-cultural, as I pointed out earlier. So I'm really wondering, when people leave cinema with a wonderful feeling and they really enjoyed this, and some had a flashback to their childhood, even though the film is a bit different from the ones they grew up with. I wonder, to what extent do you and I use this opportunity to have great conversations about these virtues? Be kind, have courage. There is, in fact, something that is right and wrong. There is, in fact, something that is worth pursuing. Tony Campolo says that I'm not so sure that Disney creates the values as much as reinforces values that are already operative in American society. Oh yes, of course. That was the case when the first stories came, and that is the case now. As one from Calvin College, William Romanowski, I read a lot of him, says popular culture always reflects the society it helps to create. So does Disney as a vital part of popular culture. But since that is the case, and if we were now to dig into some films that are more recent, of course Cinderella 2015 is really recent, but that goes back to the 1950 ones. If we were to dig into Lion King, Pocahontas, the Hunchback Notre Dame, Hercules and Mulan, we will find that there are mixed moral messages, as Annalie Ward says. It's a wholesome family entertainment, it's safe for the families, but still a lot of pointers to discussions. Some tensions here. I'll do this pretty quick so that we have time for discussion. But at the one hand, you have family values are important, but disobey authority, that's when needed. Responsibility is valued, but follow your heart. Truth is important and culturally known, but truth is what the individual knows. Communication is key to overcoming problems. Oh, the magic of the heart is what overcomes problems. It rings a bell, doesn't it? Of course you have realized these mixed messages. Lion King, in order to find himself, Simba actually had to accept responsibility. That's a good thing. Embrace, embrace. Pocahontas, a case for equality of different people, raises as well as for environmentalism. Then the Hunchback of Notre Dame argues for the humanity of all people, including the outcast and the marginalized. Hercules encouraged self-sacrifice as the defining quality of heroism, and Mulan exemplifies qualities of duty, honor and courage in a woman. Is that a surprise? In a woman? In that particular setting, yes. But I had an interesting interview the other week with one who knows a lot about Disney and who goes into Disney now and then, relating to them when they write their stories. She says they are really, really up to finding more thorough themes nowadays. They want to address important themes for our age. And we see here how they reflect sort of typical values in our society. Who am I? The key question in all of us, the key question to be answered in all worldviews. And if we look at these 5 films, we find also these mixed messages. All people are valued, Oh, only the lively, fun people are valued. Okay. What is inside? That's important. Physical beauty is important. Females can be strong and self-sufficient. Oh yeah, but they are truly happy only when they have a man. Good thing I have Lars. The heart's desire for a woman is to find oneself through love. We see that over and over again. Whereas for a man, it is finding oneself and then find love. And females can be leaders, but male leadership ought to be the norm. Okay? How does that ring in your ears? I know 2015. The stories are powerful. They surely are, whether they are the animated ones or on full screen with the live actors. And if we see a key theme that is really in big capitals, I would say, my dream, my will, that is the important. There's this wish fulfillment for me. Be true to yourself. Follow your heart. You deserve to be happy. And then a short glimpse into the view of reality in a lot of these films, not just the 5, but on a general basis in Disney. I find, and you find, not a secular universe, even though Disney said no to religion, but you find magic has been asked for over religion. Something is good, something is evil. A lot of black and white. I'm not dressed totally in black and white today, but very often I do, in order to mirror what we often find. But that is not true. It's not black and white. But I just wonder, when we now see how newer films address this evil and good issue, what about Sleeping Beauty and Maleficent? Isn't there something changing there? It's not that black and white any longer. The evil fairy, we sort of feel sorry for her in a way and understands a bit of why she's had so many evil things she did. And I even wonder, when we go into Cinderella 1950 and Cinderella 1915, about the stepmother. When I sat there in the cinema watching the film last Friday, I got a glimpse of the stepmother not being totally evil. So it's not that black and white any longer, which I find highly interesting. And then if we have a quick look at the bottom line of what I usually do when I do content analysis of films, view of faith as trust and search for meaning, I just listen to what Walt Disney says. He says, I have faith in myself, in humanity, in the worthwhileness of the pursuits in entertainment for the masses. He didn't single out any one religion. But still, in the stories, you find so many pointers via theological phrases as faith, belief, miracle, blessing, sacrifice, and divine. And I wonder whether the philosopher Will Herberg is right when he says the American religion is faith in faith, the magic of believing. So if Disney in a way is reflecting the American context of his, and that it has been changes in the stories as time passes by due to changes in the society, but still stick to some of the core values, it may be the case. But the hallmark of a great story is actually the art form of transformation. The redemption, the transformation, and the restoration. And then if we go back to have courage and be kind, please have courage because you can be restored. A good film, a good story is all about transformation after redemption and before restoration. And it gives you help. It gives the kids help to prepare for future. You now have a capacity to overcome problems and live happily ever after. Is that so? Is that the happiness? Live happily ever after? In our ears, when we hear the word happy, it's more the superfluous one, isn't it? Superstitious one? I don't have the right word here. But it's superficial, that's another superficial one. But Walt Disney, I think when he actually said, one day I'll create happiness for today and hope for tomorrow, at a very young age he said so. And in 1966, in the promotional brochure, it said, Walt is a man in the deepest sense of the word with a mission, and the mission is to bring happiness to millions. Happiness, in that sense of the word, is actually if you have had courage to overcome, with a little help of magic, problems along the road, you will actually have you will have the capacity of living happily ever after. But it's not the way of happiness as we usually think of. So he really created a story, this Mr. Walt Disney, a world of stories, of fantasy, based on a set of shared American beliefs, Mark Pinsky says, that both entertains and educates children in this country and around the world. That is what happened. That is sort of part of the question that was the answer to the question that was raised by Time magazine in 1954. But I think we should do much more work in uncovering what's actually being communicated. Because when Walt had this mission, and when he had this really urge to bring happiness to millions, he set that out in the stories, but also in the Disneylands in Europe, in other parts of the world, and here in Anaheim, where I just took this photo. You leave today and enter the world of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy. The happiness, but not the happiness that we usually think of in our age. A lot of stuff and a lot of things to digest, but just pointers, just preliminary pointers from me, who have just set up this research program in Norway, aiming towards integrating this in our courses for teachers to be, and also as a parallel wanting to do something for the church arena, for the Christian families, adopt some resources to talk, to help each other along the way, to embrace, to celebrate, but also to challenge, in order that we can actually be salt and light and grow and help the younger generations to grow as Christians. And then I would really like us, all of us, but especially the two gentlemen down there, to aim at, if my preliminary analysis is sort of representative, okay? That's fine, but I hope you can add a lot and correct me where I'm wrong and add a lot. But secondly, the implications. I'm really there. What implications do these have for you and me in our walk as disciples and in Christian education? And what about families and churches? How to be witnesses in our culture. That is mainly what I would like us to focus on, but the floor is really all yours. And this was just a way of starting it all. So thank you so far.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.